Now, we could try to get better at not like pushing gender onto people, but that doesn't mean that gender is ever just going to kind of fade away. Like, there will always be gendered characteristics, no?
But I think that it's society that has the illness, and I don't think trans people have the illness. I think it's a social illness.
I don't see how that can be something that is caused from society, where society's like the way, especially not for little kids, right?
But you don't want to be a man, so I don't want to be me. I want to be that. I want to change
Yes.
myself into that. So
no, but hold on, but you can't do both of those things, okay? But they keep saying that
you're talking about
that
data
information
and science
doesn't
is
exist,
self-reporting.
But then when I give you, yes, that's all you can have with mental illnesses. That's all you can have, Smith. We try to find
every other mental illness, we do not do it that way.
No, yes, we do. Every single mental illness,
we don't.
every single
we do
illness,
not stop
Smith, chill,
people.
dude.
Okay, what it is that's causing the problem isn't their body. What it is that's causing the problem is gender dysphoria.
But gender dysphoria is the like strong rejection of their body.
But I think in the case of heroin, you have a physical.
But that's playing into their mental illness. That
I
this
think
is
you have
another
a
area where we play into the mental illness, right? You said we didn't do this anywhere else.
Hold on. I mean, you can't know this, but do you think it's less? I can see the pain in your eyes every time I can see.
Most trans people would be much happier staying in the body that they're in and being happy with that than they would be with transitioning. This is
I don't believe that. You know why? Because I think that this might be shocking to you and your audience. But
they tried to cope and they freaking lost, and they suck now. They're dead. It's over.
So do you agree with my tweet or not?
No, I do not agree with your tweet at all.
Okay, very foolish of you.
Let me pull it up so I can read exactly what the tweet says. All right, so you tweeted out on June 12th, 2023 at 12:58 p.m. The point of putting 13-year-olds on hormone blockers or cross-sex hormones instead of waiting until they are older is so that they will not be hot when they are, so that they will be hot when they are adults. Whether or not you're okay with it, the fact remains. So yeah, I retweeted what Mindwave said, though I don't that's not really my argument. I liked what Portland is Burning said, really, but it just seems like you just don't really...
What Mindwave said is fucking makes no fucking sense, because he's pointing out the thing. He's saying that I think the thing that trans people think, but what he was saying that if I think that, then I must only value women by their appearance. I
mean, that makes sense.
I don't only value women by their appearance, but I think that if you want to change your body to look like a woman, then you fundamentally do perceive women by their appearance. If that's important to you to pass really well, then your idea of a woman is an appearance. And you can't, that's undisputable. It's just a fucking obvious 1 + 1 = 2 train of logic here.
So not really, though. So when we look at what gender dysphoria is, they have a strong disdain for their body regardless, whether or not they're hot or bad looking. They have a strong disdain for their body. The reason that we would want a kid to go through some sort of gender affirming care is because the worst time in a trans person's life is when they're going through puberty. That is going to be the hardest thing for them, and that's when the most change is going to happen. And so that it makes sense that we would try to stop it at the root, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's one other thing that so I guess it's not a 1-for-1 argument if you believe that you can be born with a gendered brain and then therefore be born to have dysphoria. But I don't believe in that theory. I don't think there's any evidence to prove it. I just think it's what it's the most convenient or most it's the most agreeable to somebody who is trans. But I don't think that that's actually what's happening. I think that I don't think there's any evidence to prove it either. I think that you aren't born with any identity or any gender, and you develop an identity and you develop these like gender is a social construct, and you develop your perception of yourself within it, and you can become somebody who has gender dysphoria, which is real. You can actually have, for sure, have gender dysphoria, but I don't think you're born with it. I think it's a social problem. That the fact that people have gender dysphoria is a social problem.
Okay. Let's start with that then. Okay, so saying gender is a social construct is just like it's a meaningless statement. Like sex is a social construct in the same way gender is a social construct. Like
No, not in the same way.
Yes. So in the same way that yes. So gender has biological components to it, but not all of it is biological. Sex, like things that
gender is based on sex.
Correct. So that
the
literally
biological component of gender is sex, and sex just is a biological component and nothing else.
So it is how we categorize specific biological components, and
Sure.
gender is how we categorize different types of characteristics. They are both categories. Categories are all socially constructed. This is how we choose what goes in and what goes out based on some sort of characteristic that we value within that label. That's why it's a category. They are both categories. And so they're
both categories. But one of them is based on like socially constructed like secondary sex characteristics or expected behaviors, which we presume to be secondary sex characteristics, or are actually just correlations and not actually related to your sex. And one of them is based on empirical sexual difference, where we have a bimodal sexual organism.
It's not just one or the other though, because gender is going to have both biological and just like socially expected things. So like, whether or not we have testosterone will change like a lot of the types of things that we do that are considered masculine, right? Testosterone and estrogen have huge effects on our brains and the way that we act, the things that we're interested in, and our interactions with other people. And so that's going to play a huge part in our drive to be masculine or feminine. So it has biological components to it, just as sex does. And so to just say, well, it's a social construct, sure, you're not really saying anything though, because
that's not the crux of what I'm saying. Saying it's a social construct was me trying to say that it's not based on empirical fact. It's based on your identity, which only exists within a society. But your sex exists without a society.
Sure, but you're saying that that the dysphoria is only a social problem, whereas I'm trying to point out that there are things about your identity that are actually that, or at least the way that other people are going to identify you, and the way that you're going to identify yourself, these have a large part to do with biology as well. So it can't just be a social problem. It is something, it's a mental illness. Dysphoria is a mental illness. Like it's obviously not just some sort of social problem. If you're on a desert island, you're still going to have a problem with a penis. Like you're still going to have a strong disdain for your penis.
We disagree here. I know that is the going thing that trans advocates say, but I don't agree with that. I think that if you were on a desert island, you wouldn't have developed dysphoria. I think it could only possibly exist, and I still think dysphoria is real. I'm not saying like if you have dysphoria, you're not experiencing, like, it's real. And it's not like you can just snap your fingers and make it go away. You got something that's now part of your life. So I'm not trying, like, I don't think when we talk about things as if they're developmental.
Let me make an addendum. Hold on. Let me correct that. Okay, I see where the confusion is. If you already have dysphoria and then are on a desert island, you're still going to have a strong disdain for your penis. Okay, obviously there
Yes.
are, like, we have no knowledge on why somebody develops gender dysphoria. So yes, I'm not saying somebody's born with gender dysphoria or anything
Okay.
like that. They could develop it. It could be from some sort of trauma. It could, like, there's a million things that could cause the dysphoria to happen in the first place. But I'm saying once somebody has
Right.
dysphoria, they are going to have that disdain for their penis regardless of what society thinks of the penis.
Right. My that aligns with what I'm saying. I am bold enough to have a theory that I think that the reasons that you develop dysphoria are social problems. So our expectations and our pressures on men and women. If you don't fit the mold very well, then you will be much more drawn to the other, and you're like if you hate yourself within, like if you hate being a man, that's gender dysphoria. And it's a lot of people grow up, I still do to some extent, but I experienced a lot of gender dysphoria and I wanted to transition,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel so much anymore because I don't think about it anymore.
Well, normally that just means that you didn't have dysphoria, though.
I
Like,
don't That's a tautological definition. I don't believe that. I don't agree with that. I don't think that I think every time someone says that, it really hurts because they're like saying, "Well, what you experienced wasn't real."
well, no, it's not what you experienced wasn't real. It's that we have no evidence to say that that gender dysphoria actually goes away. We have no evidence to say this whatsoever.
Well,
Like,
I think there's well, yeah, but we have no evidence to say that it doesn't go away.
well, no, we
Um,
do. We have all of the people who never that
well,
where it
well
never
then,
goes
so
away.
yeah, but then that's tautological because if I'm
Dude,
saying that I'm
it's
evidence that it can go away, but no, but that means I don't count. It only counts if it can't go away. Dude,
no,
that's
no, 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 no.
tautological.
Well, no. So part of the process for, like, finding out whether or not somebody has gender dysphoria is, like, them going through a diagnosis process, right? And through that diagnosis process, something like 80% of people um, end up not having gender dysphoria, but it's put into statistics as though they like got better, but like that we from what we understand, they didn't get better. They just didn't have dysphoria. And then from what we understand, if they actually do get diagnosed with gender dysphoria, but they didn't have it, and then they transition, they will develop gender dysphoria because they are being viewed as a different gender than the one that they actually align with. And it becomes a traumatic experience for them.
I think that if I woke up tomorrow and I was in a woman's body, it would take me some adjustment time, but I'd be totally fine with it.
I think that there are people like that. I think that I think most people have a pretty concrete area on the spectrum that they identify with and where they sit. But there's, a select few that are going to be more open with their identity and are able to move around on the spectrum pretty willy nilly and not have much of an issue.
Right. Right.
But that's
But
obviously not most people.
sure, that may be the case, but what I'm saying is I think that when people become so strongly attached to gender in the first place, where their life revolves around it, all their thoughts about all the things that they're doing, like all of their experiences are filtered through their idea of gender. I think that in itself is a social problem, that we're putting too much weight on things that are unhealthy for people and force people to behave and have expectations that aren't healthy for them.
Sure, but one way or the other, we're going to have things that make us either more masculine or more feminine. Like, femininity and masculinity are always going to be defined based on what is more likely or expected of females and males. And so, as long as estrogen and testosterone exist, males and females are going to have some differences within their brains that will lead them to do different things, like some different things. And therefore, there will always be some gendered characteristics one way or the other. Now, we could try to get better at not like pushing gender onto people, but that doesn't mean that gender is ever just going to kind of fade away. Like, there will always be gendered characteristics, no?
Yes, I think that we will always associate. I would call those secondary sex characteristics. And personally, I think it's really important to be able to distinguish what nature versus nurture as far as behavior, which is really hard.
Especially with gender.
But yeah, but especially with people taking hormones, there are a lot of things we can kind of prove now. I've dated a lot of like trans men, and trans man on hormones behaviorally is like suddenly they become ravenously horny, ravenously hungry. They start like talking about Dark Souls for like hours and hours. Like these are behaviors that you think about kind of with more masculine, and I can see it happen. So it seems more obvious to me. So there are I think I don't think it's impossible to kind of narrow it down a little bit. No, we can't perfectly do it, but
Yeah, but
um,
secondary sex characteristics are going to be very different from gender. Whereas, like, men are going to be more aggressive, and like, we would assume it's more likely because of their testosterone that they're going to like things like
yeah,
football and sports and wrestling and fighting and all sorts of other
I don't think
very
the
aggressive types
testosterone.
of things.
I just think aggressive is a fair characterization, but you could be aggressively into Barbies. So I don't think that that's actually that I don't think that actually
Sure,
falls
but
in
in this
line.
case, when we're talking about aggression, we're talking about physical aggression. And that,
You
that
could be physically aggressive with Barbies. You could
Okay,
so it
yeah,
just it
sure.
could be
So if you're
anything.
physically aggressive with Barbies, I think that we would consider that a
Masculine.
masculine characteristic. Yeah, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I think so too.
but yeah. So that leans to my point that these aren't secondary sex characteristics. These are things that are gendered. Like, these
But
are
I think
things that
it's
are
a
like
sex.
interests, and secondary sex
I,
characteristics are going to be things like breasts, facial hair, like body parts and stuff like that. They're not like
I
sports
think
is not a
test.
secondary sex characteristic.
No, it's not. But testosterone is, and
Sure, but there
testosterone
are
makes you
things that
horny and aggressive.
actually there's things that testosterone leads to within society, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about gender.
Right, but yeah, but like so yeah, but I'm saying it'll make you horny and aggressive, and gender is how being horny and aggressive is embodied within a culture, which is just totally arbitrary. So it could be that men are like playing with Barbies and ripping them up, and like men just fucking love ripping up Barbies, and women like playing gentle football or whatever. Or, I don't know, some fucking thing like that where it's like it's just it could the test the hormonal differences and behavioral differences could play out differently totally in different cultures. But they'll still be that testosterone will probably make you more horny and aggressive.
Well, so yes, it plays out differently, but the aspects are the same. Like things like um, being like more emotional or being more aggressive or being more horny or being more like physical or like all being more nurturing, like a lot of these things are still the same. They just play out in differently in different cultures because there's different things for those interests to latch onto, but the interests are still the same, or the things that lead to those interests are still the same. And so that's how we know that there will still be some differences one way or the other.
I know there will be differences, but those differences will vary, but the proclivities will be the same. So I consider those
Yeah, so
proclivities to
the
be the
point is
secondary
that
sex characteristics.
yes, so the testosterone is the secondary sex characteristic, but the things
Yeah.
that it leads to that is going to be different within society, those are gendered characteristics. And so that's what, like, somebody
Right.
who has gender dysphoria a lot of the time, they will end up with those differences. Whether or not that's like because it's hard to tell whether or not they do that because they feel like it's expected of them, or if it's because they actually have like a very different interest in these things and something about their brain is wired differently than we just don't know. So I'm not going to make like a claim one way or the other, but from what I know, from what people with gender dysphoria report, is that they are like, they just have these interests. They're just, from birth, they are just different from everybody else, and they align more with the gender they identify with, and that's like, I don't have anything other than that.
I've got an example here. Train of So an example of a type of experience that I have had that led to some, this is not the totality of my experience, but one proclivity that I think I had, or an interest I developed or want, was I had a proclivity to be more of a pillow princess in bed. And if you're a man, it's going to be much harder for you to find a satisfying sexual experience to get
What is a
from
pillow princess?
it's the like stereotype about how like women will just like lay there during sex and the man does everything.
Okay.
So I would just want someone to like do everything. I want to just lay there. And like if you're a man, you're not gonna really get that very often. And it's gonna be pretty rare. And that that led me to feel really sad and dejected about sex, sad about being a man, hate being a man, resent myself as a man, like hate myself, want to be a woman, feel like I would feel loved as a woman, all that kind of thing, and it all stems from like just this one proclivity that I had
Doesn't
that
that just make
built
you like
on
a
all these.
bottom or something like that, though?
Yeah, but it's just like men that so if okay, so I was talking to Brittany Simon about BDSM at one point, and she she said that she went into a BDSM club when she was young, and she got mentored because like then they scooped her up and in there. But then later on in the conversation, I was saying that I'm interested in some of these things, and she said, "Well, you better start working on making some money now because you're not gonna get that unless you really cough up. Because if you're a guy, you're not gonna fucking get that experience unless you like pay for it. No, you don't deserve that. You have to earn it. Women don't want to do that for you. You have to pay for them to do it for you. Like that. Like it's much harder to find these kind of. You're shaking your
I've
head, but this is a fact.
I just
This is a statistical fact.
okay, maybe I look, maybe I just don't understand the freaking terms, okay? But in my experience, all women that I've been
Okay.
with, it is like most of the time, probably like 65% of the time, I'm the one dominating, but they love to be on top. They love to dominate. They love to like roll around and do all
Mhm.
the other crap as well. There's always like a pretty even mix of both, but yeah, like the majority of the time, I'm the one doing most of the work, and I like doing most of the work. But on days that I would be like, yo, I'm freaking tired. I worked all day. Like, I don't even feel like doing this. And they're like, oh, no worries. I'm doing all the work today. Like, that was never a problem. Like, girls don't mind it, in my experience. They don't mind doing all the work. And so
I've had ex-
it seems odd when
I've had
people
those
like
experiences.
categorize them so separately, as though it's like either you're one or the other, and not always like a mixture of both. It just sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a mixture, but what I'm saying is a statistical fact where if you're a man and you are a submissive man, and you want that is your main interest, then you are going. It's going to be like you're at odds against the statistics. Your likelihood of being happy is now dropped dramatically. And from there like your number of part, if that's important to you, which it's not really necessarily the most important thing to me, but if that's important to you in your partner selection, then now your partner selection is dropped by like I would say probably 3/4.
Okay.
So
All right. So we're like, so if dysphoria, do, it feels like we agree that testosterone has a large part to do with like what we consider to be masculine or feminine traits. Like regardless
behavioral
of trans
differences.
people, yes, regardless of trans people, things that like we consider to be masculine and feminine, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have to do with biological traits, right?
um I think biological traits,
Or
I
biological
would say
differences. Sorry, not traits, but yeah.
behavioral differences. are the
Well, no, they
hormones
are.
cause
What we're
behavioral
talking
differences.
about is the yes. Okay, there you go. Yes. Okay. So, it's not just. So now with like somebody who's trans, or somebody who has gender dysphoria, there is something that pushes them in that direction, and we believe it's a mental illness. Do you not believe it's a mental illness?
Actually, this is rhetorical, but I think that it's society that has the illness, and I don't think trans people have the illness. I think it's a social illness.
Yeah, I mean, something's only a mental illness if it gives you problems existing within society. Like somebody who's
Right, but
a
that's where I know it's
psychopath, like,
rhetorical.
yeah, sure. So, yeah, okay.
So
So,
so if I'm saying they're fine. I think that they've been made to be unhappy and hate their bodies and stuff because we socially should not have a society where that ends up happening. Like so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like men, if it was the case that like men and women wore whatever, like men could just wear dresses all the time, I bet there would be less trans women. There would like that's like, but like that's not the one change you have to make a lot of changes. Like just
less
the
trans women?
expectations. Yes, a lot less.
Why would there be
Yeah,
less?
because people will not have this repressed and resentment of their gender be where they feel boxed in. But and if people are more like open and able to just kind of freely develop into who they are without these expectations or boundaries, then um they'll be comfortable with themselves. I
So,
think
you
that we've
think,
made trans people hate
okay,
themselves.
all right. So, here's a problem. Okay. So, a lot of, and there's a spectrum of differences, but it seems like most people who have gender dysphoria really have sex dysphoria. They have a problem with their sex. They have body dysphoria. They have issues with the penis. They have issues uh, with their puberty. They have issues with growing hair in certain places. They have issues with getting muscles in certain places. They have issues with the shape of their body, bigger hips, smaller waist, bigger waist, like all of these things. Breasts, no breasts, like they're actually, a lot of their dysphoria comes from their sex, not really their gender. And so they have problems with the physical body that they have. I
Mhm.
don't see how that can be something that is caused from society, where society's like the way, especially not for little kids, right? Kids who haven't even gone through puberty yet somehow already have these problems with their bodies in their body
I don't
parts.
think it's Yeah, well, I think that all kids going through puberty have problems with their bodies, but
Now,
I don't
again,
think that you're
before they've
born.
even gone through puberty, but I never had a problem with my body going through puberty. I don't know where that came from, but the before, like
I
kids, young kids who are prepubescent aren't even ready to
I know
go
where
through
that came.
puberty whatsoever.
No. That this is just common thing. Like going through puberty sucks. It's very awkward. Your body is changing. It's horrific. You're fucking like getting fucking body hair and like it's just start having periods, your voice changes, your balls drop, you
I
start
think
getting
it probably
horny, you
sucks
don't
for
understand what's going
women,
on.
but
It sucks for men too.
okay, I've never heard this before. I had no issue with puberty.
I
It
was
was
traumatized because when I started getting really horny, I was like freaked out. I started doing research like how do I stop being horny? Because I was like this is gonna make my life worse.
Yeah,
I feel
sure, and
like I've
that's
been
what this is. My
inflicted with an
problem is
illness.
I feel like you're speaking from personal experience and then projecting this onto everybody else. I
No,
played football,
it's just
I
you'll
played
get zits.
basketball. I had a bunch of close friends. None of us had problems with our puberty. None of us were like talking about, "Oh man, this sucks. Like I can't believe I'm growing facial hair. This is crazy, right?" Like, or I'm getting boners in the
Your
middle of
voice didn't
class and I
crack.
I hate
You
it and everything.
Yeah, you get boners in the middle of class. You got you
Yeah,
get fucking
voices
zits.
cracked,
Your
so did
fucking voice
everybody
cracks.
else's.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's awkward. Okay. It it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world for me, but it is a scary experience that freaks out a lot of people. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, I got through it just fine. But I think that this is just a commonly understood thing that puberty is scary.
Okay, maybe. I've never heard this before, but either way, okay. So for kids who haven't even gone through puberty yet, they already have problems with their genitalia. This is already an issue for them. They haven't even gone through puberty yet. They already have a strong dislike for the genitalia. There's no way to explain this from your perspective.
I think that I think that if that is the case, it's outrageously rare. Like as far as like trans people are rare, people who are who first of all, there's a sexual element. There's autogynephilia and autoandrophilia, and I definitely had autogynephilia when I was in kindergarten. And I would fantasize about if what if I was forced to go to the all girls school, and they made me wear dresses and girls underwear, and it would get me like all like ooh, excited and worked up as a little kindergartner. So there's definitely, so I think you can have that sexual like dysphoric experience when you're that young. So
Sure, maybe, but
yeah,
that
but I
doesn't
don't
have
think
much
that
to do with the body parts, though. Like they have a strong rejection
I
of
wanted to
their
have a vagina there.
genitals.
I wanted to have a vagina when I was very little.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so like
But I
this
grew
is
out of
something.
that part. I grew out of that part because I realized my dick is good, and having a vagina is impossible for me. And so I became very attached and accepting of my dick, which has served me very well.
Sure, but this doesn't like it doesn't seem to be uncommon to know that somebody has gender dysphoria before they start going through puberty. That doesn't seem to be uncommon with people who are trans. It seems to be the norm, and uh, they are generally like the parents at least have an idea that this is the case before they start going through puberty. Then once they start going through puberty, the problem is that like now they're about to go through something. They already have a rejection of the body parts that they have. Now their body is going to change even more and become something even worse and more rejectable for somebody who has dysphoria. This has nothing to do with being good looking. This has everything to do with the rejection of the body that they have.
I think part of puberty and part of growing up is learning to accept your body.
Sure, that has nothing to do with this. Like, sure, part of growing up is learning not to kill people, but some people are psychopaths. Like that doesn't help a psychopath. Everybody, sure, everybody needs to learn not to go around murdering people.
The thing about dysphoria is the failure to accept your body.
Yeah, but it's a mental illness. Like it's very different than what everybody else goes through. You're mentioning yes, a normal part of life, and then comparing it to a mental illness.
You're presupposing it as if it's a determined thing from birth. But what I'm saying is,
I am not.
Oh, no,
we already covered that part.
So if you're not saying that, what I am saying is, you will have dysphoric, like to some extent, dysphoric experiences going through puberty. Some people more and some people less. Some people will just adjust to it very well. Some people won't. And there are other factors like your sexuality and maybe even autosexuality, where you're now focusing on your own body and how that makes you feel. And like you want to see yourself as a woman even, and that might confuse you. And how you feel about yourself socially as a man might confuse you, and your social, all these things. And I think that if you have gender dysphoria that becomes really entrenched, then that means that you have failed to accept your body, and now that's part of you. Now you don't accept your body.
But not accepting your body does not mean that some other body part would actually fix this, right? But with somebody who has gender dysphoria, that is the case. Like you could still reject the other body part too, but not if you have gender dysphoria. You'll end up accepting the other body part for some reason.
I think that if you had dysphoria where you didn't want to be a woman and you didn't want to be a man, that would just be suicidal ideation. But I think that if you want to like not be a man, you want to be a woman, it's not, because if you want to be neither, you just want to be nothing. But you don't want to be a man, so I don't want to be me. I want to be that. I want to change myself into that. So
no, But hold on, but you can't do both of those things. Okay, the thing about gender dysphoria isn't just that they have a strong rejection for the body that they have, but they also have a strong preference for the other body. They have to have both of those components in order to have gender dysphoria. Some people just have body dysphoria. It has nothing to do with their gender. They just have body dysphoria. They just have problems with certain body parts, and that's totally different. But somebody with gender dysphoria, they not only have a strong rejection of the body that they have, but they have a strong preference for another body type.
Okay.
Well,
What about if you're anorexic and you have a rejection of your body and you would like a different type of body?
That some well, I mean, dysmorphia is a little bit different, but
I think it's
but I'm sure
basically almost identical.
no, I mean they have. I'm sure they have dysphoria with their body as well, but the difference between dysmorphia and dysphoria is that dysmorphia, you just have a strong rejection of what is there. With dysmorphia, you see things that are not there. You see fat that is not there. You see body parts that are not there. You see things that are not real. It is totally different.
Okay.
Dysmorphia is not the same as dysphoria.
Okay, but what if you just have anorexia where you accurately see your body, but you want to look really, really, really thin, like a runway model?
Then you're probably like bulimic or something like that.
Yeah, but I think that's basically the same.
Okay.
But like both of those things are like that. Like I say that, um, and I feel like um we have to be so entrenched in saying like it,
I'm
like
not sure the point
talking
this
about
is
it.
supposed to make.
The point I'm trying to make is if someone is bulimic, the goal for a bulimic person is for them to learn to accept their body and not harm their body and be comfortable in their own skin. But if someone with gender dysphoria, we say that, well, if you have gender dysphoria, we're just gonna like help you change your body into like, so we don't do that with people who have anorexia. Like it doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Why? Why don't we do that with people with
because
anorexia?
because it would hurt them.
How would it hurt them?
It probably reduce their life expectancy by like 3/4 or something, a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unhealthy for them.
And
We've done
yeah,
studies that show what actually is
hormone
healthy, what
transitions.
actually helps the person, and the best thing
Okay.
that actually makes somebody who has dysphoria healthy and happy is for them to actually transition. That's what the studies say. That's as good as it gets right now. It could be that we're
I
totally
don't
off and
think
that there's
that's
something
true.
totally different. What do you mean that's not true? Of course that's
I
true.
think that's all based on like self-reporting. Like if you want to change your body, you want to have a woman's body, and then we give you the hormones,
Can
and
you
then you
name a
say thank
mental
you, and then
illness
now I'm
that isn't
happy.
based on self-reporting?
Okay, so if we did the reporting the same way with anorexia, and we did the same line of investigation, same line of treatment, this would happen. It would be people that say, "I really, I hate my body. I need to be like really thin, and I need to look like this, and I don't look like this, and I feel so ugly, and I can't stand myself." And then we'll be like, "We're gonna help you. We're gonna wire up your jaw so you can't eat." And then, in 2 years from now, you're gonna be like, you're gonna look exactly like that, and we're going to talk to you then, and you'll be like, oh, thank you very much, and now I'm so glad that you did this to me. I'm so happy with my body now. And then we're like, okay, well, that proves it, that I mean that this is the best treatment that we could possibly give you. Science done. That's the science that we've done for gender dysphoria and like
No, it
transitioning.
is not. No, it is not.
Okay, then what is the difference?
So there's a massive difference. So for one, what we talked about is whether or not the person is actually healthy, right? So actually like able to interact within society, actually able to get along with other people and have a job, be friends with their friends and family, not be suicidal. The fact that like the regret rate is like 1% for people who medically or what is it? or surgically transition in some way.
That's insane. I think if you think the regret rate for people that surgically transition is that low, then however you're picking your data, like that's a horrifying traumatic experience. I remember. Oh my god. I remember. I have a. There was like this trans porn star I watched when I was like like a teenager, and at one point they medically transitioned, and after that the look on their face whenever they did anything was they were horrified, and they put anything in their body they had this horrified, disgusting, and it just like really shook me to see that. And uh yeah, I don't believe that if you surgically transition, the chance of you being happier, I'm gonna say, is fucking less than 1%.
Okay, that's fine. You asked for why there's a difference. Currently, we have over 8,000 people in a meta-analysis said that it's adults and teens, that 1% of them had a regret rate at some point. Not even they completely regretted it. At some point after their transition, they had regret. That is 1% at some point had regret. Then also, they found that 99.7% of trans individuals were satisfied with their surgery. A work group including cis, trans, and gender diverse professionals met during a 14-month study consisting of patients who underwent gender-affirming surgeries during a 5-year period between 2016 and 2021. So that's 99.7% for this one. Like,
I'm guessing that includes things that are not reassignment.
No, is it surgical reassignment and medical?
I'm guessing that's I'm guessing that's like trachea. I could get one thing I looked into. I really wanted to get done before was I wanted to get my because I have a very strong Adam's apple. I wanted to get this cartilage shaved off so I'd look more feminine. I'm sure I could probably be satisfied with that. I don't think that having your genitals changed, like reassignment surgery. I think that it's fundamentally, I think scientifically, almost objectively unsatisfying. I don't think if you want that to be a goal, as a scientific,
is what I'm talking about.
thing, it's not.
Base everything off of your personal experiences, and
so if you're satisfied from having but the thing I'm saying is you will not, if you have a neo-vagina, it's not a vagina, it's a like a gaping wound. So if we had a magic button that you could press where you would actually,
just rhetoric,
if you had a magic,
that doesn't mean anything.
No, that's not rhetoric. This is not rhetoric. This is
rhetoric.
If listen to me, this is not rhetoric. Listen to me. If we had a magic button where you could press it and you would actually have a real functioning vagina, I think the satisfaction rate would be 100%, but it's not that. It is not anything close to that. I think your satisfaction rate is going to be fucking, I think the trauma of admitting to yourself how horrified you are by what's happened to you is might make it impossible for you to ever admit that you're actually horrified. But I do not believe that those people are actually going to be happier who've had fucking neo-vaginas and shit.
No, this is like saying no, nobody's happy with getting their ears pierced because that's just a gaping wound. Like, it's ridiculous. It is rhetoric. It is perspective.
Okay,
it's
your
just
sexual functionality, your ability to have an orgasm, your sexual functionality, it's just obliterated.
Sure, that sucks. And there are things that people prioritize over just that thing. There are some, and it makes sense that some people wouldn't prioritize that.
We don't agree.
But this
we don't
is the
agree
problem.
On the reality.
But this is the problem that I have with a lot of people who reject all of this, is that they just reject all data, all science. They just don't believe any of it. But they keep saying that
you're talking about data and science is self-reporting.
But then when I give you, yes, that's all you can have with mental illnesses. That's all you can have, Smith. You can only have self-reporting.
So here's the thing. So with other mental illnesses, like people with delusions, people with schizophrenia, people with anorexia, we don't treat them, we don't play into what they think reality is and then say, see, now that we've so say if like somebody that believes that they should, I don't know, just go back with the anorexia thing. We don't just give them what they want and then ask them if they're happy. Mm-hmm. That we don't do that with any other mental illness. Only this one. So
we've already been
you're saying that
There's
this
a reason.
So what you're saying, you're saying I'm rejecting science. I'm saying that what you're calling science isn't fucking science. Not at all. It's not fucking science. It's not how we do science. It's fucking
bullshit. This is how we do science. This is 100% the way that we do science.
It's
yes,
how we do it in any
this
other
is how
time.
We always
this
do
is
science.
with any other mental illness. We don't do it that way.
Always do science this way. We try to find.
Every other mental illness, we do not do it that way.
No, yes, we do. Every single mental illness, we don't.
Every single
we do
illness,
not. Smith, chill, dude. Every single time I start to answer, I've let you interrupt me like the last 5 times while I'm responding. But every time I start talking, you interrupt me. Okay. Every single medical study that we do, anytime there's an illness, we start to test different hypotheses for how to treat these people. And then when we have the best data for the best outcome, then we start to use that outcome as the best treatment. This is how we do it with everything. Currently, this is what we have as the best treatment. We don't have another treatment that is actually better. There isn't data out there that actually shows a better treatment than this. Not anywhere close. Nowhere close. The second best thing is giving them therapy, and that's horrible. That's gone horribly for people with gender dysphoria.
I think it's if it is in fact a mental illness, I think that we have already established within the psychological community that playing into someone's mental illness is bad, and it will probably lead to them being happy about it. And just because people are happy about it doesn't mean you're actually helping them.
So with other mental illnesses, there are negative outcomes to playing into their mental illness. In this case, there are not. There are positive outcomes from playing into their mental illness. So obviously, we're going to treat it differently.
You're going to lose your sexual functionality. You're going to lower your lifespan. You're going to reduce your physical health. Mm-hmm. You're going to have traumatic like experiences, like with your body having like horrific changes and shit. If you go on like puberty blockers, your genitals will never mature, so you're never going to have any health. Having a healthy sexuality and healthy orgasms, healthy sex life, taking that away from somebody is a really big deal.
So taking puberty blockers, of course, your genitals aren't going to mature. You don't want your genitals to mature if you're taking puberty blockers. Secondly,
well, if you want a neo-vagina, you're going to need your penis to get bigger, because sure. in cases where so actually it's back ass backwards.
Sure. No, you have to have enough of a penis to get a neo-vagina, of course. And there are time limits put on these things so that you don't take it for too long, so that you're capable of getting a neo-vagina in the end. Everything else that you mentioned, these aren't the things that are being treated. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen medicine commercials for anything, but they list off a million freaking side effects for all of them. Anybody who takes serious medication always does it at the risk of other things. They're always weighing one thing over other things. This is the case with everything. I take tons of medication and I have tons of side effects from all of those medications. But if all you did was just list off all of the negative side effects from those things, people would be like, Tom, what the hell are you doing? Why would you take this? But if you don't actually show how much my life improves and the fact that I'm able to work a job and the fact that I'm able to have healthy relationships now, you would never know if all you do is just focus on the negative outcomes. I am weighing the positive versus the negative, and then I am choosing to take the medications, just as somebody with gender dysphoria would do.
So if anorexic people are suicidal unless we starve them, then I guess it's worth it.
If that was the case, currently that is not the case.
I mean, probably is just as much the case.
It's not. We have treatments that work for people who are anorexic.
Yeah, we'll literally force feed them.
Yes,
and they'll be miserable for it, and we don't care. We don't care. We just do it.
That that isn't an option with people with gender dysphoria. There's not an option to just to do something else. I
think that if you have gender dysphoria, it's going to be important for you to learn coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you so you're saying that we've exhausted all other options, and the only thing we can do is to play into their negative view of their body and reinforce it. And rather than trying to give them coping skills or have them like be able to live with their discomfort with their body. We have to physically intervene and change their body medically.
Just as with any other mental illness, of course, like we have to
No,
intervene in some
there's no
way
other.
and stop what it is that's causing the problem. Yes.
Okay, what it is that's causing the problem isn't their body. What it is that's causing the problem is gender dysphoria.
But gender dysphoria is the like strong
Problem.
rejection of their body and the strong preference for a
Yeah, but
different body.
their body isn't wrong. Their gender
That doesn't
dysphoria
mean
is wrong.
anything. There's no right or wrong. It's the preference and rejection. There's no right and wrong here.
You cannot have the wrong body. You only got one.
Right and wrong
It's
body
yours.
is like it. That's just freaking rhetoric from trans advocates. I never said right or wrong body. I'm talking about somebody who has a strong rejection of the body they're in and a strong preference for a different body. That's all I'm talking about. There is no right and wrong
But
body.
you can't have a different body.
You
Like
can
if you
change the
could, then
body
it would
that
be
you
different.
have. You can change
You
the
can
body that
alter
you
your
have
body.
to be different and
Yeah,
something that you would actually be happy with.
that's that. Yeah, but it's if our technology, and medical technology for transitioning was way better, I wouldn't have any of these opinions. Like if it was like I don't like in Dark Souls 2, there's a coffin you can go in and it changes your character model. Like you can become a man or woman and you just go in there as many times as you want. I would just be like, I would do it every day just for fun. Today I'm going to be a woman. But we don't live in that world. I don't think we have like if I don't think it's worth it to intervene with people's bodies like that. I think that
Well,
they're
you mean you didn't think it was
it
worth it to do it with your body, but for other people, obviously it is worth it. Obviously. It seems to be blatantly obvious that for them it is worth it.
Yeah, I think that it's if people feel that horribly about their bodies and we just like change their body for them, that just seems like horrible.
Yeah, but now you're taking this from like a medical decision to some sort of moral judgment instead. Like
No, like it's
you
just
are because you
like we're
keep talking
we're
about
literally
right and
causing
wrong
harm to them.
body. It's horrible.
No,
Yes,
I'm
it's
saying we're
harmful.
literally
Yes,
causing harm.
all medicine is harm. All medicine is harm. You are physically
No,
changing the chemistry of somebody's body every single time. It
it's
is
not
all harm.
medicine. It's
Brain
not medicine.
surgery is physically harming somebody's brain.
Breast implants, neovaginas, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, that's not medicine. That's cosmetic and and functional like intervention. It's like saying like taking like steroids is medicine.
It is
So
medicine.
if I'm suicide so if
That
I'm
is medicine.
suicide if it's no. So if I'm suicidal because I'm not really buff and no matter how much I work out, I cannot look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going to kill myself if I don't. Would you think any therapist in their right mind or any psychiatrist in their right mind would prescribe me steroids?
It depends. Like
No.
again, yes, it does. It depends on what the
Yes.
research says, and if that is the best outcome, and that is the thing that's actually going to lead you to have a healthy and happier life and be able to
Well,
interact within society. That is the
okay, so
end point every single time.
I can say with 100% confidence that if you took people in that situation and you gave them steroids, they'd all be thrilled about it.
Sure, that's not what we're asking. Is there a
That would
better
be the
option?
self-report. It'd be 100. That would be the best option. There would be no better option if you want to rely on self-reporting and their satisfaction afterwards and their quality of life and their ability to acclimate into society because they would be the best self that they wanted to be. But we
Let me
don't
ask
do
you,
that because it's fucking insane.
if there was a better option than transitioning, do you think we just wouldn't take it because we just want to play into
The
people's
better option
delusions?
sucks.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
duh. The better
But it
option
sucks.
sucks.
If you
But
have
with everything
dysphoria,
else that
if you
you're
have
naming, the
dysphoria, it
better
sucks.
options don't suck. With all the other things that you're naming, the better options don't suck. We have much better options for all of those things. For anorexia, for taking testosterone, for all of these other things, the better options do not suck. We have much better options that actually work and lead people to be healthy and happy within their lives.
Okay, so in the case of the steroids, where you have bigorexia, and like so, I think that it will have about an equal amount of negative health impact on in your overall life as cross sex hormones would. It's basically the same. So I think that it's a complete equivalent. And the person that goes to their psychiatrist and asks for steroids, their psychiatrist is going to be like, we need to put you in a fucking in we need to like severe like mental health care. They're not going to give you steroids because that would be like incredibly unethical and insane.
So
Even though it would have the same social impact, and if there's people doing this, they're going to be like, they're going to have the same reporting, and you're going to get the same statistics that it looks like for trans people about them all being really happy about it, and satisfaction. It's just not something we can do.
do you know much about addiction?
um Maybe, I don't know, I mean, not really, I mean,
Addiction is considered a mental illness, okay? There's heroin
okay.
addicts that are stuck on heroin. They have a really hard time existing within society when they're a heroin addict, and they overdo it, they overdose, they'll have trouble like keeping jobs, they'll go out and steal stuff. We have a ton of evidence that if we just give them heroin or things equivalent to heroin, some sort of opioid, and just feed that addiction and play into their addiction and play into their mental illness instead of trying to stop them, they actually end up living healthier and happier lives, and they're able to go to work and they're able to function like a normal person all of a sudden. This is another mental illness where we play into their mental illness and do what it is that is causing the problems, and instead they end up being better off for it.
So you're saying it's good to give people who are
I'm
addicted to
saying
heroin?
I take something called Suboxone. There's also something called methadone. These are synthetic heroin types of medications that are prescribed by your doctor, where they're actually overseeing what it is that you're taking, how much you're taking, and I'm able to live a normal life, and I am no longer doing heroin anymore. This is only because rehab just doesn't seem to do a very good job. It's got like a 20% success rate. With they're filling up prisons instead. They're dying and overdosing at high rates. Everything, therapy, all of the other crap that we're trying, it just doesn't seem to work. But giving them synthetic heroin does seem to work and does seem to help them. And now they're able to live normal lives.
Yeah, I am completely for that, but I think in the case of
But that's
heroin, you have a
playing into their
physical.
mental illness. That
I
this
think you
is
have a
another area
physical.
where we play into the mental illness, right? You said we didn't do this anywhere else.
Hold on. I'm saying that's a physical addiction where you like literally like getting off of it. Not only are you like, you actually, your body will like, start rejecting not having it. So
Hmm.
um, but I don't think that that's parallel. I think a good parallel would be if you were like addicted to weed or something, because not transitioning, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to be miserable,
Well, yeah,
and being
because
miserable is going to help you learn coping mechanisms,
alcohol
but
also
you're not
has
going
a
to have.
physical addiction, but we don't do this with alcohol. Why? Because it doesn't actually lead to a better outcome. So we can't just say one or the other. This is my point, is we can't just say playing into a mental illness is bad or not playing into a mental illness is good. We can't do these things. It is what is the best outcome, what actually helps the person. Every mental illness is unique in its own way and has its own problems and has its own solutions. And so something like gender dysphoria is a very weird and different and extreme type of mental illness that is going to have a weird and different and extreme type of solution to it.
But it's not a physical addiction like with alcohol.
It doesn't mean anything.
That If we had a drug with alcohol that simulated the effects like of methadone, that so that it would make like it wouldn't actually like be as harmful as alcohol, but it would cure, it would alleviate your addiction level, that then we would use it, but I don't think we have that.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, is that same thing with gender dysphoria. If we had some other option, if we had something that we could do that would actually help them where they didn't have to
Right.
transition, then yeah, we would do that. But we currently don't have that. So we're a little bit too far off topic.
I know
The
what that would be
point
though.
the point in transitioning is not to be hot. The point in transitioning is because you have a strong rejection for your body and a strong preference for other body parts.
I think that's the same.
I don't think it's the aesthetics that is causing the problem.
Right.
But when you're talking about
It's
being hot, you are talking about aesthetics.
No, 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 no. Hold on. The tweet was not just. I wasn't just saying that transitioning is about being hot. But I mean, in a lot of ways it is. But specifically, like the reason I framed it that way in this specific, I was saying the difference. The reason to put a 13-year-old on hormones as opposed to like waiting until they're an adult is because their transition will result in a much more attractive outcome. That's the point. Like so all trans people will always like be like, I wish I started earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, it's too late for me to
Why
transition.
though?
Everybody
Why do
wishes
they
they
do that?
started at 18
Why?
because you will look much more like what you want to look like. You'll be much hotter. You'll be more attractive. You'll pass better.
Keep past that.
These are the
Why
same
do they
thing.
care about that?
Because they want to look like the opposite sex.
Yes, because they have a strong rejection of the thing. So it's not hotter, it's something that is gendered, something that is like a sex or gendered
But
characteristic that
yeah,
is
but
going
you
to
can
either.
transition.
Yeah, go.
You can transition later and still like you can still transition. You just won't be as hot.
You keep framing it as hot though. You aren't wrong. Obviously,
It's
that's going to be more aesthetically pleasing as well, but you're making it sound like that's the
but no,
goal.
hold
That
on.
is not the goal. They
Hold,
have the problem regardless of whether or not they look hot.
I think that they can look hot if they don't, but I don't think they'll think they're hot. Um, I think the solution, the methadone solution for trans people would be for people in their lives to love them for who they are and for them to not like like and for them to be like accepted by society for who they are and how they are.
That sounds great, Smith.
Yeah.
that's not that's not a real thing though. Like we tried that. We've tried that for most of human history. That doesn't seem to do anything. But what we currently have seems to do things and help. And but again, it's about when they're going through puberty, that is when they are going to have the most changes that they will reject. The most things will happen that they will start to reject. More and more things that they are going to reject start happening. And so instead of having more things to reject, they already have stuff that they're freaking rejecting now. Why not stop it and just let it sit for a while and don't create more things for them to reject? Allow them to age, allow them to get a little bit older, allow them to go through therapy, see a psychiatrist, figure out if this is the best path for them. And then if it is, then maybe 2, maybe 3 years later, they can start some sort of transition period. But the point is to stop them from having more things to reject. That is the reason for it. It's not to make it so that they're hotter. It's so that they don't have more things that they're going to reject. It can be both, but like the reason for the medicine isn't for that thing. It's for this thing.
Mm.
Like I take Suboxone. It can get me high, but I don't take it to get high. I take it to function. I take it so that I can go to work. I take it so that I can exist within society like a normal freaking person. But it does the other thing too. And some people walk around saying, yeah, people who take Suboxone, they just take it to get high. That's a thing. But that's not why we take it. That's not the reason for taking it.
Okay, I think okay, so the reason I think that an adult will want to have taken hormone blockers or or hormones when they were 13 is because they want to be hot. The reason you may, but if you're just traumatized by your developing body, then I guess it's just to escape the horror of your developing body,
So
which I
what
don't think it should.
what?
I don't think we should let people
Let me
escape that.
clarify real quick. You're saying instead of hormone blockers, you're saying the reason they would take something like HRT
Or hormone blockers, either one. I think HRT, like hormone blockers, are just like half HRT. Like you're not doing the whole thing. You're just stopping half of you're just stopping your development, but you're not like aiding it in another way. It's just half. You're doing half the work.
Sure, it's a different thing, but yeah, sure. So, okay. Do you think that they're taking this medication because of the strong rejection?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that if they knew that they weren't going to look pretty or hot afterwards, but they would still get something that was uh, aligning with the gender that they identify with, that they would still do the transition?
No, I do not actually.
That's wild.
I think that if you are trans, you have a vision of what you should be, and
You
unless
do,
you're that, you're not going to be happy. And I don't think you can really become that either. I don't
you
think
do,
it's really
but it's not.
possible to fully. I think most trans people are never actually fully satisfied with like how they actually look, and like they always feel dysphoric even after they transition. And that's a fact.
It's not
I mean, I can
ugly
Google that if you want.
dysphoria though. It's a no. Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
So
People
the
who have
dysphoria
gender
doesn't
dysphoria
actually even.
continue to have dysphoria, of course. It
Yeah.
doesn't go
So
away.
the dysphoria doesn't even actually go away
Well, it
when you.
desists, but it doesn't go away, of course.
What do you mean by desist? I'm saying that people that transition and
It
like even
desists to
pass
some
well
extent.
are still dysphoric and still horrified by their bodies.
Yeah, but so it desists to some extent, meaning that like the rejection is not as bad. It doesn't bother them as much. It doesn't push them into some sort of depression as much. It gives them so like I know tons of trans people who completely pass but say all the time, yes, I still have like a really bad dysphoria over this one specific thing, right? Yeah, of course, that's the case, but they pass really well, and their dysphoria and how badly it affects them is much, much less than somebody who doesn't pass at all.
Do you think it's less than? I mean, you can't know this, but do you think it's less? I can see the pain in your eyes every time like. I can see.
There's no pain in
um.
my eyes. I'm freaking tired, dude. I work like 8, 9 hours
Okay.
before I come here and do this stuff. Yeah, I'm just really tired.
So that's the pain. It's like, oh god, he's still going.
Bro,
Yeah.
I've got like 6 hours of stream ahead of me. I'm here for it.
Okay. Um. I think that if they were never to have transitioned, they might still have dysphoria, but I don't think that it would be worse. I don't think it would. I think that transitioning in itself, so you pass very well, but you're still dissatisfied with certain aspects of your body. That's going to make you more vigilant and more aware of the things that you hate about your body that you can never change, and you'll be like. I just think you'd be better off learning coping skills, and like
But wouldn't that
we
matter if
don't let
coping
people.
skills work? Like, I feel like we've been over this and you keep going back to it. Like, of course, that sounds better ideally, but we know that that just doesn't work. And so we have to give them new coping skills. That's what the transition is a type of cope with like the fact that they are dysphoric.
So before we started transitioning people, did all these people just kill themselves?
Probably not. Lots of them probably did their best to just pass. Lots of them maybe got married and and tried their best to live a normal lifestyle, and then lots of them probably killed themselves.
I don't think most of them did.
We have no idea. I don't even know why you would guess on that. Like, there's no way for us to know.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying I don't think that. I don't think they would have.
But I don't even like, this is kind of the issue, is that you make leaps to things where you're just like, yeah, this is just how I feel about it. This is just what I think. But
Yeah, but
I
I'm
don't
saying the
make those
science that you're
leaps.
talking about. Yeah, but I think that the science that you're talking about is making those leaps. Like for instance, like I said with bigorexia, if you give people with bigorexia steroids, then they're all going to be happy. And if you say that's the hard science and that proves it, and we've tried everything else, and this is the thing that makes them the most happy and the best outcome in their life, I mean, that's going to be the case. But I don't think that that proves any. Like I don't think that that proves that that's. And I also think that if you gave those people steroids, there's that's not only will they be happy that you gave them steroids, but it'll also increase their bigorexia, and because you're playing into it, so now they're going to be more aware of their bigorexia, and they're like that's going to be a bigger part of their life.
Yeah, but again, the only reason that we don't do that is because we have proven better options that actually work, and we can give them a good life without doing that, right? Again, if we could do that with trans people, we would.
I don't think that we would at this point in time. I don't think we care about better options. I think we care about placating trans people and trans activists,
There's
and
no
I
way.
think that
There's
we
studies being done all over the place. Like, this topic is about to death. I would say most people within the United States are closer to you on this topic than they are to me. Like, this stuff is talked about and debated and researched to death, and somehow
yeah.
everything that we're getting still happens to
Yeah, but they're
align.
not doing they're not doing research on alternatives to transitioning. They're not. If you
They,
do research on alternatives to transitioning, people will get really fucking pissed. People will call you a bigot, and you'll get canceled. And the ability for you to do functional science and research is going to be dramatically hindered. If you're working at a college, you might lose your job. You're going to get protests. So if you do science that goes against what trans people want, then you're going to have a much harder time doing it.
yeah, I don't think so. I think
I
that
do.
within science, people care about science, and I think that there are tons of people who are still researching these things. And we recently had the issues with that gender affirming care center in the UK. What was it called? Had that weird name. Um, Damn it. Chat, what was the freaking name? I don't know. Anyways, there was this place that like was still doing things very differently, and they had tons of lawsuits afterwards because it just didn't work. Yes, Tavistock. Yes, they had tons of lawsuits afterwards because it didn't work, but they had this like ideological bent to where they refused to actually go along with the science, and they ended up causing massive problems for a ton of people. Currently, this
What
is
problems
just
did they cause?
so people, I don't remember exactly, so I don't want to I don't want
They
to
just didn't transition people?
they I don't remember exactly, but I want to say, yeah, one of the things was that they tried
Right.
to recommend people to go to therapy instead of transitioning, and kept
Okay.
like, every time the people were like, hey, like, we've been doing this for years, can I like start to transition at some point? And they'd be like, yeah, just like a couple more years of therapy, it's okay. And it caused more and more problems for these people. Um and the science
What does that
shows that
mean?
well, the science shows that if somebody transitions at an earlier age, they seem to be a lot better off for it. So,
Well,
um,
yeah, well, yeah. So anybody that does anything else now is canceled, and you're saying the science shows because anybody else that does it, the science shows. So if you do anything else, the science shows. So you need to stop doing that because we know what the science shows, and you got to do this. Got to do. We got to play into their
yeah,
gender dysphoria. We got to put them
that's
on hormones because the science shows.
that is very different. It is saying, hey, do you want to be part of a experimental thing where we put you through therapy instead of you transitioning, I'm sure most trans people would be like, hell yeah, I don't have to transition and I can be comfortable with the body that I'm in. Yes, I would love to try that. Like
I don't
most
think
trans,
that. I don't
I
think that's
know,
true.
I know
Most
that's true.
trans people. No, that's actually not true. That's absolutely not
Hold
true.
on. Let me. I don't think that they would actually do the thing, but I'm saying that if there was something real that they were saying, hey, we have this thing that we think would actually help you, that would actually be better than transitioning, I think most trans people would take that. Most trans people would be much happier staying in the body that they're in and being happy with that than they would be with transitioning. This is
I don't
like,
believe that. You know
I
why? Because I think that this might be shocking to you and your audience, but I think that and anyone who listens, I think that trans people want to be the opposite sex. So I don't think that they would actually want that, Tom.
So, you know about the 80% desist rate, right?
Illuminate me.
When most people go in for gender affirming care or to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, 80% of them are told that they do not have gender dysphoria by the end of it. This is called a desist rate, meaning that, like, at first they believe they have dysphoria, they have a strong rejection of blah, 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 but going through therapy, 80% of them eventually are told that they don't have gender dysphoria and then move on, and they go on to either figure out if it's something else or they go live happily ever after. Like, but the 80% end up not having gender dysphoria, and then there's the 20% that actually move on to something like puberty blockers. And then once they start puberty blockers, they continue going through therapy. And there's a percentage of those that still end up being told, you know what, we actually don't think you have gender dysphoria. We're going to move you on to something
So you're
else.
only talking about kids.
It's not just kids, but like most kids, most of the time, adults don't choose to go through therapy and all of that crap. Most of them choose to just go straight into.
Yeah, but so that's the thing. So that what you're talking about applies vast majority to kids, and kids are just confused and don't understand what's happening when their body is changing and then growing up. With adults, if you have the option, you're just gonna be like, no therapy. Give me my fucking drugs. Give me my fucking give me the scalpel and change my body.
Still get the diagnosis, but then
because they need it to get the drugs.
Right, and so that's what I'm saying, is that they still have to go through some sort of therapy. They still have to see
whatever they're forced to do.
Sure. The point
but they don't want to. They want to change their body. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, but with kids, they're just confused, and you're more likely to.
Yes, we're talking about in a world where this is like seemingly proven over and over that this is the best option. But when I'm talking about kids going through this process, my point is that there are a ton of people where we over and over tell them, hey, you don't have dysphoria. We're going to have to move you on to something else or just nothing or whatever. Like they call this the desist rate.
We don't have that process with adults because adults can just get they'll be like, okay, I'm going to do every bare minimum what I have to do. And then I'm going to get the drugs, and I'm going to Google what I have to do so I can tell you exactly what you need to hear.
Get the drugs. A lot of this is part of the process for them to get the drugs.
To Google what I'm gonna Google the list of things I need to tell you so I can get the drugs, and I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna Google what place I can go to so that I can know how the easiest possible way that I can get the drugs is. I'm gonna go there, and if that doesn't work, I'm gonna go get it in a fucking bathtub or whatever the fuck, and I'm gonna change them. Like they I don't think people go to like therapy to actually alleviate their dysphoria. They want to change their body.
Yeah, sure, but
that's what they want.
Again, when we're talking about the fact that they need the diagnosis, this is part of the process for them to get the diagnosis. They still have to go through some sort of therapy. They still have to see a psychiatrist in order for that to be the case.
It's way less of a rigorous thing than it is for kids. So the 80% desist rate is you're talking, and also kids are more likely to desist because they're more turbulent. And so the longer, while kids are going through puberty and they're like uncomfortable with their body changing, and they'll start being more adjusted, and that's good. I'm saying that the ones that fail to become adjusted are the ones that have persisting dysphoria, which we would agree with.
Sure, but when you're talking about the fact that we should try try to make them actually happy with the bodies that they're in, I'm saying we do this with 80% of kids. Like, we do this. We are trying to make them happy with the bodies that they're in, and with 80%
But
of
we
them,
don't do.
that's what we do.
Okay, but why do we not do that with the other 20%?
Because that's not the best option anymore. And so when you make it sound like nobody cares to even try this, nobody even wants to try this, they just want to transition everybody, that's not the case. For most people, they desist and they move on without any sort of hormones or
No,
puberty
yeah,
blockers or anything like that. For most people, they actually do exactly what it is that you're asking for them to do. It's the
no,
small percentage that actually move on to transition.
when you say most people, the data you're talking about is mostly kids, and we
Yes, that's
have,
what we're
and so
talking
kids.
about. We're talking
No,
about
but
kids.
most people that no most people that transition are not kids. So the 80% is incredibly like deceptive, and like extremely deceptive, and it's good because we have a lot more protections for kids than we do for adults. So we force this situation where they're going to have much more rigorous care, or we don't force that situation with adults. We just throw them to the wolves, and we're like, oh, you want the drugs? It's going to be a lot easier for them to get it. So I I don't think that we do that for adults. We do it for kids because we want to protect kids. We don't protect adults as much.
Um, yeah, that's the problem is that with adults they can literally just choose to go get some sort of plastic surgery um and get a lot of the stuff done regardless of whether or not they have dysphoria. So it's a totally different process. The point is that like when we have the ability to, we we do make sure that they are trying to be happy with their bodies first. Then, if they don't, if it is an adult and they don't just want to go get the surgeries and they actually go to get the medication and they actually want to get a prescription and a diagnosis and all of that, they do go through therapy first. And part of that process is making sure that they actually do have a strong rejection. And so, like you said, as an adult, if you still have dysphoria, it's probably pretty set in at that point. It's very different for a kid to be able to desist than an adult to. So once you're an adult, pretty set in, yeah, it makes sense that you're more likely to like move on to actually getting puberty block or not puberty blockers, but HRT. Whereas for kids, when we have the chance, we are giving them another option and making them happy with their bodies for the majority of them.
Yeah, I don't agree. I I think that you're probably still able to change your mind always maybe you're still pretty turbulent until you're 30, and your idea of yourself and like what you are and your relationship to your body is still changing, and I just yeah I I think that we should be as protective of adults as we are of kids, and we shouldn't have like our medical institutions just be, well, they're gonna just get it anyway, so just do it. And I don't think that that's science either. I think it's just play. They're just opting into it. Um, I
Yeah, but
just
that's
I don't think
you're
we actually do the
what you're
because what you
saying we
said
don't
proves
have
what
an
I what you
option for, dude. You're saying things
what
that
you
we
s-
just don't even have an option
what you
for. We,
said
people have freedom.
what you said proves me right. The 80% desist rate is mostly statistics from kids. And so if we had the same situation but for adults, then maybe they would have a much higher desist rate, but we don't do that.
I I don't know what the desist rate is for adults, but the point is that we do a similar thing for adults. We do. Like the difference is that they don't have to go through puberty blockers, so they don't have as long of a period of transitioning like kids do. Kids have like years of transitioning where they're just hitting the pause button for a long period of time before they even
Years
get
of
onto
therapy.
HRT. Yes, and therapy and all of that other crap. Whereas for adults, they don't need any of that stuff, and so it's going to be very
I think
different
they do
one way or
need
the other.
I think they need years of therapy.
Yes, but they don't need to hit the pause button for years. And so it's convenient with kids to where we can just hit the pause button and give them years of therapy. With adults, the pause button doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, they still go through therapy. They still have to get a prescription. They still have to get a diagnosis. And they're still making sure that they actually have gender dysphoria before they give them any sort of prescription. So they are still doing similar things and trying to
I
make
would
sure that
rather
if they
give
could be happy with their body, that they're going to be.
I would rather give people without gender dysphoria uh, cross sex drugs than people with gender dysphoria. I think it makes more sense. It would be more responsible to give people without gender dysphoria like access to these like treatments and surgeries because they're people who don't have a mental illness that's fixated on changing their body. So it's like
But they would.
um
But they would though. They would.
it's like
That you would cause gender
it's like
dysphoria if you did that. You would cause them to have gender dysphoria. These people would
maybe
develop gender
maybe
dysphoria.
maybe maybe I don't know. I don't think that's proven. I think that's just conjecture. But
Well, for people who detransition, we do we do believe that they all developed gender dysphoria. Yeah. Like it's a traumatizing experience for them. Like detransitioners talk about transitioning like it is a traumatizing experience. Um, and that they were
I wouldn't
just
say they had gender dysphoria because I would just say they like had transition dysphoria.
that's
Like like dysphoria
you're
from like
playing
having
word games. It's the same thing.
no, because you're like a trans woman isn't a woman. So like a trans woman having dysphoria about her trans woman body is not the same as a woman having dysphoria about her woman body.
It is because now you're not being viewed as the gender that you actually identify with. For cis people, that's the way that they live their entire lives. So it's they would never have any sort of dysphoria
I don't
unless
think
something
the
happened to
amount of
where all
people
of a sudden they weren't viewed as the gender they
the,
identified with.
the amount of people that actually pass is like almost none. It's just like a couple of rich people and people that started when they're 13. So like I don't think you're actually more likely to be viewed as the gender that you want to be viewed as. It's very
It's a
unlikely actually.
spectrum. You are more passing or less passing the earlier that you start, and there are adults who pass fairly well. Um, transitioning as adults, it's harder to do so, and you have more surgeries that you need, and more cosmetics that is necessary for somebody who's already been through puberty, of course. But it's um, it's a spectrum for everybody. Like you're pretty small and skinny, and um, you would like your body type would be a lot easier to transition than
Nah,
my body type.
I got some
True.
muscles on me.
Bro, you're scaring me. Stop it. The
Before I worked out, because I used to do this. I didn't work out at all, and I would starve myself so that I wouldn't develop muscles because I wanted to have a more feminine body. But now I started working out, and I feel really good about it.
that's good. But this is what I'm talking about, where I feel like a lot of the time you're projecting your experience onto everybody
It's taken
else's.
me it's taken me until I was 27 years old to start feeling that way.
Yeah. And I think it's possible for a lot of people. It just doesn't seem to be the norm.
I think it probably is the norm if you're like, I think if you make it without fucking killing yourself till you're fucking 30 and you don't like take the hormones, you're going to be end up I think probably a lot more comfortable with your body,
Yeah, but
like
we're
almost
talking
the vast
about
majority of
like
people.
record suicide rates for people uh like ever. Like people are killing themselves at higher rates from having gender dysphoria than being in freaking Auschwitz, dude. Like it's
Really?
yes. There's record rates.
Well, if that's the case, then I think we need to stop them from killing themselves.
I agree. You know what studies say is the best way to do that?
Padded room.
It is, but generally, that's a last resort. We try to give people their freedom and allow them to exist within society. Again, the regret rate thing for me is like the biggest thing. Like 1%. There are so many trials that these people go through before they transition. Once they transition, they are pretty set in their ways, and then there is a very small percentage, even of the 1% that that regret. They, it's like what is it? It's like 15% of them detransition.
That might be true, but I think that sounds fishy to me.
It sounds fishy, sure, but this is the best data that we have.
Wrong.
And this is what I'm talking about. Is like, we have to go by the best data that we have. This is the data that we have. This is the best information that we have. And this is like a new phenomena that we're figuring out. And currently, this is as good as it gets. This is the best information. This is that, like, we can't get better information than this. But what a lot of people want to do is they want to say, well, no, I don't like this, so I'm just going to not believe the data. And the more and more and more and more data that comes out, they're still sitting there going, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Not for me.
No. Yeah, well, my philosophy is that if your entire data set revolves around self-reporting, you don't have a very robust data set. And if we investigate other things, then we're going to have a much more robust understanding of these things, like we do with every other mental illness.
Do you think schizophrenia is real? It's all self-reporting.
Yeah.
BPD, all self-reporting.
I don't. That's no. We don't give people with schizophrenia, like someone with schizophrenia says that I need a pile of rocks for my I don't fucking know. Like I need a pile of rocks to fucking protect me from X-rays. We don't just give them a pile of rocks. I'm sure it would make them happy and it might make them feel safer from the X-rays.
Sure, you keep doing this.
But we don't do that.
You keep regressing in the argument. We've already gotten past this. Yes, we have better options than that. So of course we don't do that.
But if we did that, their self-reporting would be that they're much happier and they would feel much more protected and much more safe.
If we can get that same outcome with other things, we can get them to be happy and healthy.
Giving them a pile of rocks isn't harmful. Giving them a pile of rocks isn't harmful, though.
Giving them lithium is harmful, yet we still believe that this is the best case
scenario. I think
we
shouldn't do that either. I don't think we should do that either. I don't think we should do SSRIs.
Do you consider yourself like a science denialist?
No. I think I'm absolutely
not
a denying
conspiracy
science.
Theorist?
I'm saying that like taking SSRIs is bad for you.
Taking all medication is bad for you.
Yeah, I take Adderall. It's bad for me.
Yeah.
I wish they didn't put me on it. I didn't learn if they didn't put me on it, I would have learned coping skills that I don't have now.
You don't know that.
Things that people
know that.
I do know that. Yeah, I know that. All the things that people complain about with Adderall, and they say that when I take Adderall, I can't stand it. My heart starts racing, all that. I'm like, I learned how to cope with that when I was fucking 15 years old. But when I'm not on Adderall, boy, is it hard to cope. I wish that I had those coping skills, but I learned coping skills for having Adderall in my body.
Do you know how many of my friends, I was a heroin addict for about 5 years. All my friends were, I got arrested for RICO. I had like a group of people where we were all doing a bunch of stuff and doing heroin while we were doing it. A lot of them died trying to cope, trying their coping mechanisms. They're dead. They're gone. They will never come back. They don't get another shot at it. Their parents never see them ever again. I never see them ever again. They don't get another shot at this. It's over with. They tried to cope and they freaking lost. And they suck now. They're dead. It's over.
Well, I'm still taking the Adderall because of that.
There are things that can extend this. And you can try to cope with some help, right? There are people who take Suboxone instead of trying to cope and dying. They take Suboxone and they can extend that out and they can learn coping mechanisms at the same time. Mm-hmm. People who are transitioning, they don't have that option. That's not an option. They either transition or they try to cope with a massive downside to that possibility.
But they're not dealing with a physical withdrawal or anything of like what I'm saying, I wish that they didn't put me on Adderall, because if they didn't ever put me on Adderall, I would have just been a hyperactive kid and I would have learned how to deal with that. And I would have learned how to do tasks while being a hyperactive kid. I would have learned how to function as best I could. But I didn't learn those lessons. So I feel the same about like putting a kid on like hormones. Like you're giving them a drug that they're not going to be dependent on for their whole life. And at best case scenario, instead of giving them time where they could be learning how to cope, like letting them go through puberty so that they can learn to cope with having a body that's fucking an adult.
Lots of people, you said most of the people who are transitioning are adults, so they're going through puberty. They're still not coping with that body.
Right. It's a lot more hard for adults.
Well, I mean, they had like it is harder. And the point is that that we gave them the option of coping and it didn't work. And if we could go back and redo it, we probably would have just transitioned them earlier so that they could be happier with their body, so that they could not have a strong rejection of it. They could have still a rejection of it, just not as strong anymore. And it's about that rejection, not about how hot they are, not about how appealing they are to the opposite sex, but just the fact that they need to be appealing to themselves.
I think that's rhetorical. I think that's rhetorical. I think that it's really the same thing. I just said it in a very more inflammatory way.
I don't think it is. I think that it's completely different. Some people might have beautiful penises. They might have just godly penises that they are still rejecting. It has
but they don't
to do
think
with
that
the
they're hot. Like they think that but they think they're ugly.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I'm saying hot. I'm saying hot by their definition, not by everyone else's definition. There's tons of hot people that want to transition. I'm saying the outcome of their transitioning will be much more attractive.
Yes, the outcome, and that's what they want. But that's not the reason that they do it. That's my point. Is that yes, that's the reason
that we don't.
But that's not why they do it.
That's the reason that. That's the reason that we don't want people to wait.
It doesn't matter. The point in transitioning is so that you don't have the strong rejection of it, regardless of when you do it. It's always going to be the same. It's because you are going to have a strong rejection. Now, the earlier that you do it, the better off you're going to be. Yes, but waiting longer can make it to where you're not going to have a smaller waist. Waiting longer makes it to where you're going to have like more hair removal more often, and you're going to have like a much squarer jaw that's going to give you more dysphoria, and you're going to be taller, you're going to have bigger muscles. These have nothing to do with how hot you are. These have to do with the fact that it is a male type of thing and not a female type of thing.
You're going to think you're more ugly if you transition later.
That's a side effect of the fact that you look like the other sex. That is not the overall goal. The goal is to look like a female.
Yeah, because that's
Yes.
what you think is attractive.
No. It has nothing to do with being attractive. It has to do with the
Well,
dysphoria.
okay, well, I spoke to a guy named Foolery a while back who just published a very long research book on autogynephilia. And the research says that 90% of trans people are auto heterosexual. So either autogynephilic or autoandrophilic, which means that it is it is an attraction thing. So you're attracted to yourself in the image of the opposite sex. And the other type would be homosexual transsexuals, which are not uh, auto heterosexual, where their attraction to the other sex is now like pointed inwardly. They want to be the opposite sex because they're attracted to the same sex,
Yeah, I mean,
which
I've
is
looked
still
at
sexual.
um, I've looked at the research from who was it? Is it Blanchard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've looked at the research from Blanchard, and I don't disagree that it's like a possibility for a lot of people. It's just I don't think it would. Uh, I don't know that it matters, but I guess every study seems to have flaws within it, and so I always look at them and say, yeah, like this is possible. It doesn't seem to actually have much validity yet, or like it doesn't have much what do you call it, substance to it, but it's possible. Just currently, I mean, if you want to send me that, I'm happy to look at it, but um, I feel
Yeah.
like they would
I'll
be
find you.
focusing a lot more on the autogynephilia if that had more substance to it.
No, they don't want to focus on. This is something that Phil talks about quite a bit. There's not even a Wikipedia page for autogynephilia because it gets taken down. People that do research on it get canceled, and it actually is absolutely objectively the case that if you do research and you study these things on trans people that go against the prevailing narrative, your ability to do such research is greatly hindered.
So there is a wiki on autogynephilia and paraphilia and Blanchard's transsexualism typology. There's wikis on all of these things.
Well, it wasn't up when I talked to Phil. He said it got taken down and it usually is down. So I guess it's up now. That's good.
Or I guess it's there. It's a redirect to Blanchard's transsexualism typology.
Okay, so there isn't one then.
Yeah, sure, because currently they don't even know if it exists.
Well, they don't know it exists in the same way that they don't know that the alternative theory exists. It's like they just don't like that theory because they think that people like for some reason we have to essentialize everything, or like the fact that it has a sexual component, people feel like it's delegitimizing, but I don't think that means it's delegitimizing. It's just as real.
Well, let's say that it's actually not real. Let's just assume for a second that it's not real and that it has no validity to it. Do you think that would be harmful to trans people?
What if it was wrong?
Yeah, if it was completely incorrect. Do you think that would be harmful for trans people if everybody believed that this was some sort of fetish for them and or a kink and then uh but really that wasn't the case at all?
I think what's harmful is calling it a fetish or a kink. But I don't think that I don't think you have to use
That's what
that
that is.
language to talk.
That's what that is.
I mean, it's related to that, but that doesn't it's a fetish or a kink that is it's not like
Are you
having
saying it's a
a
mental illness that is also a fetish or a kink?
Sure. It's a mental illness. It's like dysphoria. Like so if you read Phil's book, there's a lot of different embodiments of autogynephilia. It can be embodied socially. It could be embodied in cross-dressing. It could be embodied in wanting to change your sex. It could be embodied in like different forms of transition. It just because it comes from a sexual pathology doesn't mean that actually manifests in a very sexual way.
Yeah, sure. But it would, I don't know. Yeah, it still sounds like it's just a kink. But it,
It's not just the kink, it's a kink that makes you want to kill yourself because you have the wrong body.
yeah.
So
Well,
that doesn't
okay.
make it any less real.
You say the wrong body. I don't generally use that kind of language, but the
Sure.
um okay. Yeah, I think that I guess the way that you're using the language is just not it seems like you're saying the same thing. You're just using like different rhetoric to say the same thing. Like, yes, they're unhappy with it. You're calling it hot when, like, not all, we wouldn't say that all, like, aesthetically pleasing things are hot now. But if it's a sexual thing to you and you think that it's all about autogynephilia, then I suppose it would be about being hot instead of being dysphoric.
I think it's really hard to want to change your sex without it being sexual. I think it's just like the idea of that being the case just it sounds it doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, of course it's sexual to want to change your sex. Like the point of your sex is like your sexual functionality.
Sure, to some degree, it would be sexual. Yeah.
Yeah. But like it could be you could be fixating on the non-sexual aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be biological, and there's, um, like, I wouldn't say that, like, a burn victim who got their penis burned, like, if they have to get a graft on their penis now, this is a sexual operation, or that it's a sexual thing for them. It seems like it's
I
that
don't know.
they got a
I think
problem.
it is like if no, so like if I get my penis burned and I like can't have sex with my wife, I'm gonna like it's gonna be like for
Yeah,
me
sure,
to get
it's
my
going
sexual
to hurt you or hinder you sexually, but that doesn't mean that, like, the operation is a sexual thing. You do other things with
well,
your
I'm
penis besides sex.
yeah, you do the helicopter and
I
yeah,
played softball.
yeah, yeah. All right, I think I have so given what I've said, so you think that I'm like wrong and I'm anti-scientific.
I think that autogonophilia doesn't seem to have as much validity as you're giving it, and you're denying the best information that we have on transitioning, and you don't seem to have a
What
good
makes you
reason for
say
it
that?
out. Well,
You,
I gave you statistics uh on regret rates. I we talked about, like, stuff for um uh like why somebody, or sorry, we talked about what, like, dysphoria actually is. Um there were, you talk about mental illnesses, like, like the outcome isn't what matters, and that we have like, oh, you just do this thing, this is how we fix mental illnesses, instead of it being like, let's just figure out how they can exist within society and have the best outcome. Like, yeah, these are all seem to be anti-scientific ways of thinking about this stuff.
I'm saying that if barring physical addictions, you don't give somebody the thing that they're like fixated on,
Why
is
barring
it because of
physical
their mental?
addictions?
Because physical addictions mean like you like literally need it to be healthy.
Yes, that's because of the mental illness though. It's about the mental illness. That's the thing. Like, it is the mental illness that is causing this problem, and it is going to be the same with somebody who's dysphoric.
Yeah, I think that I just think physical addiction is different.
Okay. Yeah, I have no reason to believe that it's actually different. Like, the process to getting the outcome is the same. Like, this is what I'm talking about. The process to getting these outcomes is always the same. We're trying to find a way that these people can exist within society in a happy and healthy way. That is always what we're looking to do. That's like the definition of a mental illness is somebody who can't exist within society in a happy, healthy way because of a problem with their brain. That is a mental illness. And so we fix that by making it so they can do that.
So I feel like you're very dismissive of any alternative theories or any alternative things because you believe that what you know is the scientific way, even though I think that I've demonstrated why it's contrary to how we normally conduct science, and the evidence in itself is
You haven't.
not very like worthwhile.
You haven't. This is
Yeah,
what we
it's
keep going over. You haven't. You're
but
looking at it
so
from its
I
perspective
think I
here.
have.
It's perspective.
I think
When
that
I say,
but you're
okay, hold on, hold on. Let me
you're
ask you a question.
wait, hold.
When I
I
say
was making a
that,
point.
okay,
Okay.
I feel like what you're
No, no,
already
no.
starting off on
You
a
say that
false
because then
premise.
I'll go
So,
on.
okay,
Yeah.
so you're, do you disagree that when we are trying to figure out how to fix a mental illness, we are trying to figure out a way for the person to exist within society in a happy and healthy way? Do you disagree with that?
Um. Yes.
Okay, why?
I think that the when we are trying to help someone with a mental illness, we're trying to make I think that there's like a hierarchy of goals, and goal number one is always to um, alleviate their mental illness. Goal number two is if you can't alleviate it, then learn to cope with it.
But
Like goal number three.
wait, but the first one is what I'm saying. The first one is the same thing as what I'm saying.
No, I think that if you let people trans people transition, you're not you're not getting rid of their mental illness. You're reinforcing it.
Sure, giving somebody who's schizophrenic lithium isn't actually getting rid of their mental illness. You are helping them exist within society. So when you're
But
saying
schizophrenia,
alleviating symptoms so that they can exist within society in a happy and healthy way is the same thing as alleviating their mental illness. Those two are the same things.
no, I think that like depression is a mental illness that you can figure out how to solve to like change your life. If you have depression, you need to like change your life. I think that if you have schizophrenia, you have a physiological like condition in your brain usually. Like there's different types of schizophrenia, but it's usually something like that. Um, and if you have gender dysphoria, then that is like anything related to your identity. I don't think that that is set in stone. Like I think that you can. I think if you take hormones, it's set in stone. but I don't think it's set in stone if you don't. But I mean, it's gonna be hard. I mean, it might as well be set in stone. It
Yeah,
it
it
might
doesn't.
actually
All
just
mental illnesses don't have to be set in stone, but we're alleviating symptoms. That's the point, is that we're trying to make it so that as long as you do have the mental illness, you are able to exist within society in a productive manner.
I uh I am anti uh using drugs to solve issues in the first place. In the case of physical addiction, I think that is necessary. I am for that. Um, I think that in the case of like schizophrenia, I think there's a physiological condition. You might need drugs, but I think if it's not a physiological like reality, like I don't think you should be using drugs for it.
It's a mental thing, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like if it's so bad that it can't change.
You understand that sounds like anti-scientific. Like,
No, being no being having a moral objection to using drugs to solve issues isn't anti-scientific. It's like a like that's just like a
yeah, but you would
virtue
have
or
to, maybe. So you can have values that make it to where you think that taking drugs isn't great, but if it leads to much better outcomes in the end, most people would be like, yeah, I'd probably just take the drugs. Like, you can have a value that
right.
would make you say, like, maybe don't take drugs unless it's absolutely necessary, but your take makes it sound like you just don't think it's absolutely necessary. And
Well, it might make their lives worse, and if they don't do it,
in yeah,
like for example, SSRIs or something, or like what however they medicate like women with like BPD. Um, like I think that like there's like a lot of women that are like being diagnosed with certain mental illnesses that I think we need to stop fucking medicating them for, because I think the reason that they're presenting these mental illnesses is because socially we have a problem where women are like more unhappy and we're making them go fucking crazy. And if we keep just fixing the problem by drugging them, we're never going to solve the social issue. So that's how I feel about gender dysphoria.
that's that's not true at all. The people need to be able to cope and exist within the world today while we don't have the social issue fixed. Them coping
But
with drugs is not
if
going to stop us from figuring out what the issues are and fixing them. One does not affect the
well,
other.
it's like a Band-Aid that covers up the problem. I think
That's what drugs are.
if we don't put the Band-Aid on, then we're gonna have a gaping wound we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, it's just what a lot of drugs are, is just a way to, like, help with symptoms.
Right. But just to be clear, like if it's like in your case, like I think that that's perfectly fine.
Well, there's a lot of people who value drugs in a different way and they think it's not fine. They think that it's literally the same as being a heroin addict, and that being a heroin addict is the problem. That being a heroin addict is the problem because you are taking drugs that is not uh, like. So, yeah, so they, like, you're literally just giving the person the drugs so that they can continue taking them. Um, they
You're stuck on it. You
they see
can't
it the way that you
this is
see
way better.
transitioning.
Yeah, but it's different. I think it's different though, because like
It's not
if
because
you
it's
like
way better.
your body will literally like shut down.
Well, I will go through withdrawals, and
Right.
then I'll have some long lasting effects. Like, withdrawals last about 3 to 4 days. Then I'll have some long lasting effects with, like, brain chemistry that'll lead to, like, depression and problems with drive and crap like that. Sure. But I'm not going to die, my body's not going to shut down from me not having heroin or some sort of opioid.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, I think it's different.
The point is that in the end, we're just looking at the outcome. We're looking at the
I wouldn't
outcome.
make it. I
That's it.
wouldn't make it illegal for. I wouldn't make HRT illegal for adults. If I don't think that I should be like making that decision, but I'd want to advocate for people to not do it because of my story. And I think that, like I said, like I'm 29 now, and I feel great about my body, and it took a really long time for me to get there, and so I want to advocate for that, but I wouldn't like make it illegal. Um,
Yeah, but
but
you understand that there were tons of practices that were trying to do like conversion therapy and all sorts of other types of therapy to help people transition, and we just have no evidence that it actually works. So, at least not for a large amount of people. At least not enough to where it would actually be effective, like transitioning is. Like you understand that,
yeah,
right? Like that is
yeah,
we
but I
just
don't think we've ever. I think okay. I have a lot of fucking okay. I just have a lot of beliefs and understanding, subjective understanding of a lot of these things. I believe that we've never done any ethical conversion therapy whatsoever, but from my personal practice, like I have been able to like intentionally change my like sexual interests. So like I'm like I was like I did an experiment and I was like I'm gonna see if I can give myself a foot fetish, and I tried to give myself a foot fetish with help from my girlfriend, and I have a foot fetish. I gave myself. I think it's
Mhm.
possible to change. I just don't think it's possible for someone else to change it. So
Yeah, but you would have to believe that being trans is some sort of fetish in the first place to think that that's somehow relevant.
well, you brought up conversion therapy, so I was
Well,
like,
because I'm saying that like some sort of sexual fetish is going to be very very different from a mental illness. I agree. What you're attracted to is malleable, heavily malleable, and can change pretty
yeah,
easily. Whereas
especially for men.
these things are not
Um,
malleable like what you're sexually attracted to is. Yeah, this is a thing that I talk about a lot where like men are like, no, we all want the same thing. We all want the same women. We all want exactly the same thing. I'm like, no, we don't, dude. We do not. Like what you get used to is what you become attracted to, and that's what you want afterwards. There are so many fat dudes who only ever have fat chicks, and then they look at skinny models and think that they're toothpicks and they look disgusting, and they have no attraction to them whatsoever. So it's yeah, you become attracted to the things that that
yeah,
sounds backwards, but you become attracted to the things that arouse you.
yeah. Well. This. Take this with a grain of salt because I don't have the study in front of me, and I. So. But like, if someone like Google's it, so if anybody hears this, take it with a grain of salt. But I'm pretty sure this is the case. They discovered some protein in the brain that is affected by testosterone, which has to do with arousal. Where so in a so like men getting like horny, like if you can physically like change something in your brain more than women because we have more testosterone.
Do you remember what you were on before we started talking about the anti-science
Oh, I was
stuff?
just
You wanted
saying.
to go back to it.
I think before we got about the anti-science stuff, I just wanted to clear up. I'm not anti-science. I don't think that a lot of any of this is hard sciences, and I think we're fixated on certain specific outcomes. Like for instance, when we brought up, oh, the thing I wanted to say was what I think that you're very dismissive of Blanchard's like ideas um and the autogynephilia type stuff because it sounds like I'm just calling it a fetish, and that makes um it sounds distasteful, and you don't want to go down that line. And you're saying, well, there's not a lot of like evidence for that and stuff, but I think that there is. So you just like I think that you're just as anti-scientific as I am.
Yeah, I mean, look, I I say the same thing. Um, I believe that the Earth is flat, and everybody who thinks it's round is just kind of dismissive of all of the evidence that we have that it's actually flat. And I think if people were just more open-minded, then they would actually see that I'm not anti-science. I just have a different perspective on this.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a hard science. We're talking about psychology, and like we're saying, like self-reporting is
No, it is
not
a
good.
hard
And
science when we're talking about desired outcomes. Like when we're looking at desired outcomes, we can have some uh like data sets that we're looking at, and obviously it's going to be self-reported, but we have data sets that we're looking at, and the data sets are the desired outcome, and that is what we're looking for, is that
okay,
data set that we're
I
currently
got one
getting.
more thing to talk about. One more. I got an analogy. So I have a tattoo on my pelvis that says "Cummy's Band." Okay, I got this done because it was like a stupid thing I did when I was younger. But I'm not. I don't regret it. It's a fun tattoo. But um, I'm pretty sure if I didn't get it, I would say I was glad I didn't get it. And I'm never gonna say that I regret it because it's a decision. Like I can't take it back. For me to regret it would be horrible. So like like if getting a tattoo, how many? What is the rate at which people regret getting tattoos? I'm pretty sure that's going to be very low too. But I don't think that actually means that it didn't. They did. They're not on like. I don't think that means that everybody should get tattoos just because if you ask everybody with tattoos if they regret it, they're gonna get like 1% saying they regret it.
Sure. But that's similar to what we're talking about here, where like I have tattoos that sometimes I regret it, like, and I think like, damn, I probably shouldn't have gotten these. Most of the time I don't think about it and I don't care at all. And so when we're talking about regret rates, we're talking about the fact that like, yeah, lots of people regret at some point. Like they'll have some regret here and there, but for the most part everybody's just happy with the way that they are after transitioning.
All right. I think we cleared it all up.
I think you won.
You think I won?
Yeah.
All right. Hell yeah. I've never heard you say that one before.
Well done.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Later, man.
Later.